Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. Now, does your breath power your speaking voice? If you're not sure of the answer to that question, then if you run out of breath when you speak, or if you find it hard to project your voice or to vary the volume and dynamics in your voice without reaching, straining, squeezing, tightening, and tensing around the sort of throat and neck area, the chances are it's not powering your voice as efficiently as it could. And so that's what I want to talk about on today's video, what we're really aiming for, and also how you can start to access that to allow you to really find greater power, freedom, ease, and expression when you're speaking. So respirational breathing is one of the three subsystems in voice production. I just want to make that really clear, that is one of three. And often we think it's a magic bullet, that if I get the breathing down, then I can sing, then I can speak, and I don't have to worry about anything else. But it really is one of three subsystems. So yes, it's incredibly important, but it's not the only thing that we have to consider. But for today's video, that's what I'm going to be focusing on exclusively. So we're aiming for a low breath pattern when we speak, if we want to find that real freedom and power in our voice. Now, for many of us, this is really quite challenging because we kind of unlearn it. As babies, we naturally will breathe low. We have a low breath pattern as babies. And then as we get older, because of the way we live and our lifestyles, etc., the breath tends to get much more shallow. So partly I think it's to do with sort of lifestyle and sitting a lot and sitting at computers and devices and driving and sitting at a desk all day and being kind of hunched and squished over. But it's also to do, I think, with there's just a lot more chronic stress and anxiety in the world today. And so when we're in that kind of chronic stressed state or anxious place, we go into fight or flight, and that means the breath gets shallow. So when we deepen the breath, not only does it help to power the voice more efficiently, but as a byproduct, and I would say as a win-win of all of this, you also can engage the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to really calm us, which helps to alleviate nerves and anxiety. So I would often suggest to clients, particularly if you're a nervous speaker and you've got a big presentation coming up, to just do some deep belly breaths, which I'm going to talk about today, just to kind of stimulate that parasympathetic nervous system, but then also to take it a step further and to start to utilize that lower breath pattern in your speaking, which I do help clients with. Like, how do you actually start to drive the voice from that deeper place? It's not going to change overnight. If you've spent your whole life breathing quite shallow, it's not going to happen overnight, but it will change if you practice it. And it's so worth the practice, as I say, because it's a win-win anyway. So when people breathe from this shallower upper chest place, what happens is it tends to overly recruit the accessory breathing muscles. And these include the pecs, which will raise the ribs, the sternocleidomastoid, which will raise the sternum and the collarbone, and the scapula, the shoulder muscles, which will raise the shoulders. And so if you look at yourself in a mirror, or even if you observe this in anyone else, often there's a lot of this kind of movement when we're in this kind of shallow upper chest breathing place. And just to say, although we are trying to lower the breathing pattern, it doesn't mean there's going to be no movement through here. You're not going to become like rigid through your upper chest. It's just that this isn't exclusively kind of moving. It will move a little bit, but the predominant movement happens in the abdominals, in the lower ribs, and the lower back. And that's really a far more efficient place to power the voice from. When we breathe too shallow or in this kind of upper chest place, we really do create a lot of tension and squeeze around the larynx. And this is why you run out of breath. It's also why you will probably find that your voice lacks power, or you lack the stamina to kind of keep speaking for long periods of time. And you might find you struggle to really get any real dynamics in your voice as well. So your voice is going to be quite limited, and it's just not going to feel that great. You'll probably feel your neck wants to engage quite a lot when you speak, maybe your shoulders, and it's just not going to feel that great, particularly over a long period of time, if you're speaking for hours at a time, for example. So when I work with a client, and I pretty much work with everyone on helping them to access this deeper breath pattern, one of the things I do is start to get them to activate and engage their belly more when they speak, just because that's an easier direction than me getting them to sort of move their lower ribs or engage their lower back. So it's just an easier direction to give people. And abdominal muscles are obviously really important for stability in the body as well as the breath. And if any of you do Pilates, I do Pilates, you'll know how important this is for that stability in the body. So when we contract the abdominal muscles, it creates a pressure that helps to push the diaphragm into the chest cavity. And that is what really drives the breath out of the lungs and what creates the voice and the sound, etc. But as mentioned as well, it's not just the abs, it's also the lower ribs that expand a lot more than the upper ribs, and also the lower back. When you're just breathing and you're silent, the vocal folds are open, the breath is kind of flowing in and out. And there's nothing to really hinder that breath movement at all or restrict that breath movement. For speaking, we speak on the exhale or the out breath. And there are things that interfere with that airflow, one being the vocal folds, and they vibrate to create the sound waves. Other things within the vocal tract include the tongue, the lips, the teeth, etc. So there's more interference when we are speaking with the breath. And for that reason, we need a lot more pressure when we are speaking with the breathing than when we're just normal, everyday breathing when we're not speaking. Now, again, I'm not talking about singing here. This is purely about speaking. So I'm just comparing speaking with silent kind of breathing. We do need more pressure. So if we think about vocal sounds such as vowels or consonants such as a Z, a Z, or a V, a V, they are what we call voiced sounds, and that means that the vocal folds are vibrating. There's that interference from the vocal folds in terms of the airflow. If we think about unvoiced sounds, for example, a F or an S, a S, then that is things like the lips and the tongue and the teeth that create that interference with the airflow. It's kind of chopping it up a little bit versus just that normal breath that flows through the mouth or through the nose. And this is one of the reasons why we really need to engage the belly, because we want to have more control over that pressure, over that movement of air, so that we can actually maintain sufficient air pressure in the lungs just below the vocal folds to allow the folds to keep vibrating as the volume of air diminishes in the lungs. And this way the channel is more open, it's more free, and we've just got more control. We're sort of driving from the belly versus we're pushing from the throat. And really, as I said, this should be relaxed. I mean, very little should be going on here. It's driven from the belly, and then it's movement at the front of the mouth, and the lips and the tongue, and a little bit of softness in the jaw, but the neck, around the larynx area, we really want to keep that as released as possible. So a little exercise you can do first of all, and again, no judgment, no criticism of yourself, but you can do this a couple of ways. So you could do this, you could just lie down and put your hands on your belly or on your chest, and just take some normal breaths without trying to breathe in a particular way, and just notice what moves and what doesn't. So does your chest move a lot? Does your belly move at all? You could then put your hands on your rib cage. You could even put your hands on your lower back and just notice what moves or what doesn't move. You can do this standing up as well. But you can also then look at yourself in a mirror and notice, do I do this a lot when I breathe? Is this moving? Or is this generally speaking quite relaxed and it's more the belly that's moving? So just to observe, first of all, where you are. There's no right or wrong. It's just you need to know where you are to know how to move forward. So I'm going to share an exercise you can try just to start to feel the belly engaging when you produce sound, remembering that we speak on the exhale. So belly in, sound out. I said that to someone yesterday and I quite like that. So I thought I'll use that again. So first of all, this is a nice easy one. So imagine that you're blowing a candle out. The other one you can imagine is that you are blowing up a balloon. If you've got a balloon, even better. But pretend that you're blowing a candle out and just notice what activates. So if you're like, now you'll probably find that your belly engages. And I'd love to know if your belly doesn't engage, but it should engage just sort of very naturally. When you go to blow out a candle or you go to blow up a balloon, your belly will engage. So then what you can do from that, because you've started to get the belly used to moving, so you imagine you're blowing out a candle, let the belly pop back out. So we want a softness in the belly. This is really important. I think there are lots of people out there, including myself, that like to go to the gym. We like to have nice, tight, strong abs. For speech, for voice production, we want the belly to have some softness and some movement. We don't want it to be so rigid and so tense that it can't move. So allow the belly to pop out, but it doesn't have to be like a big belly, but it's more just a little bit of movement, a little bit of softness. So you can do the and then you can go from that to a F sound up. So you can go, and we're starting to make it more speech-like. And then if you find that you can still maintain that engagement, then you can start to draw the belly in and just say count from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But just make sure the belly is engaging. Now, if you're finding it hard to engage the belly, go back to the beginning, go back to the pretending to blow the candle out, or you're blowing up a balloon. Just start to feel that movement of the belly moving in and out. You can just let the belly pop back out. You don't really have to control that. The only thing you're really focusing on is drawing the belly in, but without grabbing and grasping and tensing too much. There's a sort of softness of movement. So let me know how you go with that. I'd love to know if you found that useful. Also, if you are someone that feels quite anxious before you speak, or you just feel quite anxious in your life in general at the moment, as I mentioned at the beginning, just starting to engage the lower belly really does stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. And what you can do, you don't have to put any voice behind this at all. You can just put your hands on your belly and just breathe in through the nose. Allow the belly to swell and breathe out through the mouth and draw the belly in. So breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. And you can just maybe count 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, and just start to slow down the breath, but also deepen the breath. And it really, really does calm and soothe and help to alleviate any nerves. So it's a really good thing to do if you have got any big speaking engagement and you're feeling anxious. But also, as I said, this is really also where you want the breath to be driven for speaking. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do. It makes such a difference to get my videos out there. And I will see you on my next video. Thank you so much for watching.